over there as well. How's everyone doing out there? Let me know in the live chat. You guys are cracking me up with all of your fantastic your stickers out there on Twitter. My brain is just not working today, guys. On X, the stickers have been fantastic today. Thank you guys for the smiles. Real quick, TP out there with a cookie says, happy Monday, everyone. Here's Pixel and Energy Boost cookie. Love your show. Thank you very much, TP, for the cookie there. Much appreciated. And yeah, I don't know what's going on with me today, guys, but I definitely need a little bit of a boost in energy. I think a part of the reason why is that I forgot to drink my daily coffee today. And yeah, I'm totally paying for it. Also, somebody out there, Curious One, says, I like the new beginning. I'm guessing you're referring to my intro. Thank you very much. I worked really, really hard on that. Funny story, actually. When I made that show intro, it was actually after I had gotten off of one of my live streams. I started working on it. I did not stop until the next day at 11:30 in the morning. So yeah, definitely like a marathon video editing thing. I don't think I've ever worked on something for that long without even, like, I don't even think I got up the entire time. Maybe, like, to get some water or something, but yeah, I was locked in, man. Absolutely locked in. With that being said, we have a lot of news to get through tonight, guys, so let's just go ahead and get this thing started. Over at thegatewaypundit.com, we have our first story. Biden's FBI knew that Brian Cole was the January 6th pipe bomber in April of 2021. This doesn't really come as a surprise to me at all, but again, it just shows how unbelievably corrupt the FBI was under the Biden regime. So, Joe Biden's FBI, under Director Christopher Wray, knew Brian Cole was the January 6th pipe bomber back in April of 2021, but for some reason chose not to take him into custody and charge him with crimes. Brian Cole, 30 years old, of Woodridge, Virginia, was taken into custody last Thursday and charged with the use of an explosive device and attempted malicious destruction by means of explosive materials. In other words, trying to blow something up. Cole admitted to investigators that he planted pipe bombs at the RNC and DNC headquarters on January 5th, the night before the Capitol riot. After nearly half a decade, the FBI appeared to crack the case less than 1 year into the Trump administration. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino said federal investigators solved the case of the January 6th pipe bomber without any new evidence. The FBI identified Cole based on his phone pings and transaction history on his credit cards, according to an affidavit. The FBI has identified one bank checking account and 6 credit cards used by Cole. The FBI obtained records for the checking account and 3 credit cards for the time period January 2018 to January 2021. 3 additional credit cards were obtained for the time period of January 2018 to November 2025. The FBI reviewed the transaction history for all of these accounts. The January 6th Select Committee, chaired by GOP Representative Loudermilk, posted its pipe bomb report and compared it to the affidavit released by Patel's FBI. In April 2021, the case team identified a redacted user who was in the area of the DNC at the time the suspect can be seen on video footage using their phone. The FBI requested and received the historical cell tower data for the user, and as of April 2021, the case team was attempting to further analyze the user's movements. It is ultimately unclear what happened with respect to this lead, the J6 Committee's pipe bomb report read. The affidavit released by Kash Patel's FBI revealed Biden's FBI had to have known Brian Cole was a pipe bomb suspect. Provider records show that the Cole cell phone connected with provider cell phone towers consistent with the Cole cell phone being in the area of the RNC and DNC on January 2nd, 2021. The Cole cell phone engaged in approximately 7 data session transactions with provider towers between 7:39 p.m. and 8:24 p.m. Provider's historical cell site data shows the specific tower for each of the transactions, along with the sector of the tower that engaged in the transaction with the Cole cell phone, the affidavit said. Cole's family said he is an autistic recluse and computer nerd who lived in the basement of his parents' Woodbridge, Virginia home. Brian Cole's grandmother told the Daily Mail that her grandson has no party affiliation and that he is not a Trump supporter. Brian Cole made his first appearance in court before a magistrate judge in D.C. on Friday. So there is that, guys. Once again, from thegatewaypundit.com, it just goes to show how unbelievably corrupt the FBI was under the Biden regime. But I also think it's a fair question to ask, why did it take the Trump administration nearly a year to arrest this guy if this was the case, if they kind of already knew back in 2021 who it was, right? That just brings up a whole lot more questions in my head. So there it is, guys. Once again, from the Gateway Pundit, next story here comes from Zero Hedge. Judge temporarily blocks DOJ, I'm trying, guys, from using evidence providing James Comey's guilt. So it very much looks like the judiciary is trying to step in and make sure that Comey skates. I guess let's just hope that doesn't actually happen. So a federal judge has dealt a setback. Man, my brain, I really need some caffeine or something, guys. Has dealt a setback to Justice Department efforts to seek a new indictment against former FBI Director James Comey, temporarily barring prosecutors from using evidence they had relied on when they initially secured criminal charges. The ruling Saturday night from U.S. District Judge Colleen Kollar-Kotelly, familiar name because she's ruled against the Trump administration on many, many things. Pretty much everything that's come in front of her having to do with Trump, she's ruled against him. Does not preclude the department from trying again soon to indict Comey. But it does suggest prosecutors may have to do so without citing communications between Comey and a close friend, Columbia University law professor Daniel Richman. Comey was charged in September with lying to Congress when he denied having authorized an associate to serve as an anonymous source for media coverage about the FBI. In pursuing the case, prosecutors cited messages between Comey and Richman that they said showed Comey encouraging Richman to engage with the media for certain FBI-related coverage. The case was dismissed last month after a different federal judge ruled that the prosecutor who filed the charges, Lindsay Halligan, was unlawfully appointed by the Trump administration. But that ruling left open the possibility that the government could try again to seek charges against Comey, a longtime foe of President Donald Trump. After the case was thrown out, lawyers for Richman sought a court order that would bar prosecutors from continued access to his computer files, which the Justice Department obtained through search warrants in 2019 and 2020 as part of a media leak investigation that was later closed without charges. But Richman and his lawyers say that in preparing the criminal case against Comey, prosecutors relied on data that exceeded the scope of the warrants, illegally held on to communications they should have destroyed or returned, and conducted new warrantless searches of the files. Kollar-Kotelly on Saturday night granted Richman's request for a temporary restraining order, instructing the department not to access the covered materials once they are identified, segregated, and secured, or to share, disseminate, or disclose the covered materials to any person without first seeking and obtaining leave of this court. Given that the custody and control of this material is the central issue on this matter, uncertainty about its whereabouts weighs in favor of acting promptly to preserve the status quo, the judge stated. Kollar-Kotelly ordered the government to identify, segregate, and secure the image of Richman's personal computer, along with his email accounts and other materials taken from his electronic devices, and barred prosecutors from accessing those files without the court's permission. She gave the Justice Department until Monday afternoon to certify that it is compliant with the order. A Justice Department spokesperson declined to comment Sunday on the ruling and what it meant for revived charges against Comey. So there is that, guys, once again from ZeroHedge.com. And again, this very, very much looks like the judiciary trying to swoop in and save Comey from any bit of accountability that he may face. Hopefully, the DOJ will be able to re-indict Comey here using some other evidence that will be just as damning. So there is that, but definitely looks like a politically motivated and unfair decision by the court here. Next one here from Breitbart.com. Cuellar says the Biden DOJ tried to entrap and bribe him. During this week's broadcast of FNC's Sunday Morning Futures, Representative Henry Cuellar discussed his presidential pardon and the alleged crimes associated with it. Cuellar claimed the Biden Department of Justice set up a sting operation to entrap him, which honestly would not come as a surprise since Cuellar, of course, was like the one Democrat out there that was saying anything about the Biden border crisis. He was actually the one Democrat brave enough to speak out against it and tell the Biden regime that they needed to do something about it, and told basically his whole party that they needed to do something about it. Of course, they did not listen to him. If they did listen to him, then they might have had a better time in the 2024 election. Not that we would want the Democrats to have a better time in the 2024 election, but I think that if you do like a post-mortem of the election for the Democrats, it was obviously, very obviously, the situation with the border that really sank them. I think that was the most important issue to the American people at the time. But anyways, let's go ahead and take a listen here. This is 9 minutes and 32 seconds long. So, and being from Fox News, we are going to have to pause this every once in a while here. But I'll do my best to provide some good commentary on this. Here's what Cuellar has to say about what the Biden DOJ tried to do to him.
It didn't matter. He's a respected person. He was treated very badly because he said that people should not be allowed to pour into our country. And he was right. And as soon as he made that statement, I then said, I'll bet he gets indicted. And that's what happened.
And that's President Trump on why he issued a full and unconditional pardon for Texas Democrat Congressman Henry Cuellar and his wife Imelda, after both were indicted last year by Biden's Department of Justice on 14 counts of bribery, conspiracy, and money laundering. The couple has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing and have...
Oh, my bad, guys. Hold on. Trying to X that thing out. Can I go back, please? There we go. My bad, guys. Let me,
and his wife, Imelda.
All right, here we go.
After both were indicted last year by Biden's Department of Justice on 14 counts of bribery, conspiracy, and money laundering. The couple has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing and have accused the Biden administration of weaponizing the Justice Department. Cuellar, whose district sits right on the Rio Grande, which was one of the busiest regions with illegal crossers.
And there's why he was willing to speak on the issue, right? Because people that were, his constituents were obviously crying out about it, and basically demanding that he say something about it. So this guy, essentially, he got indicted for what? For listening to his constituency. It's really just incredible, right?
Take a look at these pictures. He was one of Joe Biden's fiercest critics over the former president's open border policy, which saw more than 10 million people cross the nation's borders illegally. President Trump will say it's 20 million. In addition to millions of gotaways and hundreds of others who were actually on the U.S.'s terrorist watch list. Joining me now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is the man himself, Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar. Congressman, thanks so much for being here. Congratulations on the pardon.
So before he even starts speaking, like, what I want to hear is Cuellar, like, personally thanking President Trump as a matter of, like, as a personal matter here in the interview. Hopefully he does that, because President Trump just totally saved this guy's ass. Let's see what he has to say.
Thank you so much, and it's so good talking to you again.
And do you believe that you were indicted because of your criticism of Biden's open border?
Absolutely. The president was right. And now looking at all the evidence and looking at everything, definitely I feel that I was weaponized. They used the department to go after myself and my family. And I'll tell you something, Barry, if they want to come after me because I was a critic about open borders, that's one thing. But you don't bring the family in. You just don't do that. You don't, as a prosecutor, you just don't do that type of situation.
Well, okay, I want to talk about the weaponization because this audience knows all about the Democrats' weaponization of government. But first, let's hit on what they accused you of. The Justice Department under Joe Biden said that you were acting as a foreign agent to advance the interests of the Azerbaijani government. Federal authorities indicted you and your wife in May of 2024 on 14 counts, including bribery, conspiracy, and money laundering. You've consistently denied any wrongdoing, but tell me what went on between you and the Azerbaijani government.
Yeah, look, let me say this, first of all, we're innocent, and we have looked at all the evidence that got provided through discovery. We were even allowed to see the grand jury testimony. That doesn't happen very frequently, and we saw that in.
He's right. It does not happen very frequently that you actually get to see the grand jury testimony. Interesting that, that he says that based on the evidence, right? Like, this probably wasn't going to go anywhere. It's interesting that the Biden DOJ actually held on to this for so long instead of just letting it go.
doesn't happen very frequently. And we saw that, and not a single person that testified, and I'll emphasize this, not a single person said there was a quid pro quo. In fact, they failed at showing that quid pro quo. And Maria, they even went and did a sting operation, a separate sting operation to try to bribe me, and that failed. And what they did there was wrong.
I want to hear more details on this attempted bribery of Cuellar by the Biden administration. Like, whoa. And then also was the Biden administration puppeteering like a sock puppet, the grand jury? Because if they were not able to actually identify some sort of quid pro quo, then how was the DOJ through the grand jury able to get the indictment, to secure the indictment, right? This is getting very weird. This story is getting very, very strange the more he talks about it.
Was wrong. So again, no quid pro quo from any of the evidence, from any of the individuals. And therefore, they even attempted a sting operation where they were trying to entrap me, and that failed.
Wow. Entrapment, bribery. Congressman, tell me specifically, who tried to bribe you? You mean Biden's DOJ tried to bribe you?
Yes, they did. We got all the testimony, the 302s, the sting operation. They set up a false company, false account. They took out money. We saw all this. They took out the money, and they said this money was to bribe me. They try to use this money. They talked to my D.C. staff. My D.C. staff told them no, there was nothing there. So they actually returned the money back to the account because they couldn't bribe me. So the Biden administration, they tried to entrap me and try to bribe me, and that failed. And this is very significant because one more thing, everything came in from the DOJ in D.C.
Honestly, the thing that's coming to my mind now is that, if this is all true, then Cuellar needs to do two things. He needs to meet with the president of the United States and tell him all about all of this. And then he needs to meet with the DOJ and do the same there. This is crazy.
Everything came from the DOC office there. The local office, that is the one in Houston, never got enough. And from my sources, they did not get involved because they felt there was not a case, and they said, we're not going to get involved. The Houston office said, we're not going to get involved. It's all the DOJ people in Washington, D.C. There's a lot more, and I have talked to Jim Jordan, and I've asked Jim Jordan, I want to sit down with y'all because I think y'all need to investigate those.
There you go. House Republicans, right? He wants to talk to them. Maybe get an investigation going into this. This is getting very interesting, guys. There it is. I was just saying he should meet with the DOJ. He should meet with President Trump. But, meeting with Jim Jordan, that's another gentleman that would be good to meet with if you want to, if you want to burn these folks in the Biden administration for what they tried to do, then yeah, that's certainly a step in the right direction to go talk to Jim.
Prosecutors, and you need to investigate their supervisors also.
And of course, that's what the judiciary and Jim Jordan is doing, investigating all of this. Look, Congressman, if this is true, this is not the first time that the Democrats have used dirty political tricks against their political rivals. You can go back to the Russia collusion made-up story by Hillary Clinton's team, to two impeachments of Trump, 90-plus indictments against Trump, a raid on Mar-a-Lago. So all of this shows you that you've got leadership in the Democrat Party who will stoop at anything. Lows, they don't care how low to go to take you down. Why are you still part of the Democrat Party? Have you?
Very pointed question here from Maria Bartiromo. I suspect that Cuellar's answer is going to be, oh, it's my values, and it's just, I believe in the policy A, B, and C, so I have to be a Democrat, right? But she's bringing up a good point here. Why would he want to be a part of the same party that basically tried to take him out when he started to make some noise about the border, right? If you can't, if you can't be yourself when it comes to your values and what you believe is right, including with the border, while at the same time being in the Democrat Party, then why would you want to remain in that party, right? At the very least, you'd think that Cuellar would want to switch to being a independent instead, so that he didn't have to, because certainly he wouldn't want to put an R next to his name because he just doesn't believe in a lot of Republican positions. So you shouldn't expect him to do that, and really, we wouldn't want him to do that because he'd essentially turn into another rhino. But seeing someone like Cuellar switch over to independent, that would be a welcome move because I think it would actually just make more sense.
You considered switching parties?
Look, I'm a Democrat. I'm probably one of the most, if not the most, bipartisan Democrat. And as I told some of my Republican friends on the House floor, I vote better than some of the Republicans in the Republican caucus, and they agree with me. I just feel that, I follow the words of President LBJ, where he said many years ago, I'm an American, I'm a Texan, and I'm a Democrat, in that order. And I think anybody that puts party before their country is doing a disservice to their country.
Okay, but President Trump is out with a new Truth Social today on your decision to run again as a Democrat, and the president is saying, "Oh well, next time, no more Mr. Nice Guy." He's talking about the fact that you are going to continue to work with the same radical left Democrats. What do you want to say about the president's Truth Social this morning?
Well, again, let me just say this. I was at church this morning with my wife. I prayed for the president. I prayed for his family. And I prayed for the presidency, because if the president succeeds, the country succeeds. And again, as probably the most bipartisan individual, I don't vote party. I vote for what's right for the country. And in fact, when I got that rate by the Biden administration, they did it 40 days before a primary, where the far left had spent were spending total about $20 million that we know of on that. So they did this right before that. So again, I am a conservative Democrat, but I will work with the president.
A conservative Democrat. You'd think that in the year 2000, almost 26 now, a conservative Democrat could not possibly exist. But I guess if you want to define what a conservative Democrat is, then maybe Cuellar would be a good example. I don't know if I'd go so far as to call him conservative. Like, look, the one issue that I know that he's actually correct about is the border. He agrees with us on the border. He agrees with us when it comes to illegal immigration. He knows that it's wrong and that it damages the country. Does anybody know of any other positions that he holds that are at odds with the Democrat Party, though? Because I'm pretty sure that, in every other respect, and I could be wrong here, he's pretty much a Democrat. But it's just interesting to hear someone refer to themselves as a conservative Democrat, right? I guess only in Texas, I guess.
I've reached out to this administration. I told them, name the folks, Tom Homan, Christie, other folks. I say, hey, can we sit down? I'd love to sit down and see what we can find common ground. I sit on defense appropriations. I sit on homeland appropriations. And if I can work and find common ground, then I certainly want to do that.
Well, with all due respect, did you vote for the government shutdown? Okay, we've spoken with John Fetterman many times on this program, and he, like yourself, is moderate and in the middle and does not vote about party, but votes for the American people and votes for the issues that matter. So I ask you, how much pressure do your colleagues put on you? Fetterman told me that even though he is voting for the American people and doing his job, he feels, quote unquote, isolated. How do you feel? How does the Democrat leadership treat you now that you've been talking about the open border, have been friendly with President Trump?
It's a great comment. Raid says, sounds like a liberal Republican. What's that? Sounds like a Volvo with a gun rack. It's a good comment right there, Raid. I had to bring that to our attention. Oh, it's really good. Good stuff, Raid. Getting back to it here. Sorry about that, guys.
Well, listen, do I have some on the far left that are not happy with me? Of course not. But I think the general Democrat caucus and I, we get along. But they know that I'm an independent voice. They know, I was one of the 6 that opened up, voted to Democrats that voted up to open up the government. I sit in appropriations. I do want to say that the CR that was put out there, I think it was 91 pages, 64, 65 pages, didn't have anything to do with the CR or appropriations. I just want to have an input on appropriations.
Of course. Congressman, it's great to have you this morning. We'll be following your work, and we so appreciate your leadership and courage, sir. Thank you.
Look forward to being with you again. Have a good morning.
And to you, Henry.
All right, guys. I'm pleasantly surprised at his answers here. I won't say that he's perfect. I won't say that I'd go vote for Cuellar. I probably would not. But what I can say with certainty here is that the guy seems like he deserved a pardon, and it was obviously very brave and right of him to call out the Biden regime when it comes to the border crisis that they caused. So good on him, guys. Good on him. Checking up on the live chat here. It looks like we're caught up for the time being. Once again, good to see all of you guys out there. Let's go ahead and get into the next story here. From the Gateway Pundit, jurors reveal the absurd reason why former DOJ lawyer who threw sandwich at federal officer was found not guilty and the reactions during the trial. So here we go. This should be very interesting. Jurors are speaking out about why they acquitted a leftist former DOJ attorney who assaulted a federal officer with a sandwich and the reactions during the trial. As the Gateway Pundit reported, a man in a salmon-colored t-shirt, of course, was caught on video throwing a Subway sandwich at a federal officer in D.C. over the summer after President Trump deployed the National Guard to patrol the streets. He was later identified as 37-year-old Charles Dunn, a DOJ trial attorney. A D.C. grand jury previously refused to indict Dunn on felony charges, so the DOJ downgraded his charges to a misdemeanor and went to trial. However, a D.C. grand jury ultimately found Dunn not guilty last month. During the trial, Dunn's legal team claimed their client threw the sandwich to protest Trump's deployment of the National Guard in Washington, D.C., and that the attack was not violent. Dunn amplified this assertion in a statement following the not guilty verdict. I believe that I was protecting the rights of immigrants. My God, by throwing a sandwich, you were protecting the rights of immigrants? Well, what do we call that? An absolute freaking moron. And there's the gif of what we're talking about in the live chat. Know me for you out there putting the gif. Oh, you guys are amazing. And let us not forget that the Great Seal of the United States says e pluribus unum. Dunn said, that means from many one, every life matters, no matter where you came from, no matter how you got here, no matter how you identify, you have the right to live a life that is free. On Monday, Fox News reported that many of these jurors revealed their reactions throughout the trial and their silly reason for exonerating Dunn. One juror said that many in the courtroom had trouble keeping a straight face during the proceedings, with many of them laughing. He added the case had no standing in their view because it was just a sandwich. I mean, the juror said it was a thrown sandwich. Another juror added that Dunn supposedly knew that throwing the sandwich would not harm the officer. I thought we'd be out of there quickly. This case had no grounding. He threw a sandwich at the agent because he knew it wouldn't hurt, the second juror stated. A reasonable person wouldn't think a sandwich is a weapon. It seemed to me like an open and close type of thing, a third juror said. It was kind of ridiculous. What is ridiculous is these jurors' willful ignorance of the law. Throwing an object at a law enforcement official, even a sandwich, clearly constitutes an assault. Moreover, there could have been a more harmful object wrapped inside the sandwich, such as a metal weight. Rather than food, someone could have been seriously harmed. Actually, I think that's a little bit of a ridiculous example, but let's talk about pathogens, okay? What if the guy was carrying a disease and it spread to the officer from the from the sandwich? Sorry for the F-bomb, guys, I'm trying. But seriously, though, if this guy's slobbering all over a sandwich and then he throws it at an officer, now the officer could possibly contract something that the guy had. This is a serious thing. These callous reactions by said jurors give a clear signal that it is open season on those trying to safeguard D.C. residents from far-left violence and violent illegal aliens. Yeah, I totally and completely disagree with the jurors here. I think they totally did the wrong thing. And it was very disappointing to see that this guy was not going to be held accountable for his stupid little sandwich assault on a federal officer. It just goes, it just makes you wonder, like, what are they going to do next now? Because they think it's okay to throw a sandwich, then, who's going to take it somewhere else, right? We've already seen serious violence against officers in D.C. and many other places around the country because of the ridiculous rhetoric of the left, calling us Nazis, so on and so forth. So, I don't know, guys. I think this is just not good at all. It shows that, jurors at a place like D.C. are usually going to be really stupid people, and it's just a crappy situation. Next one here comes from Daily Caller. D.C. police chief who Trump tried to oust during takeover finally calls it quits. Some great news here. Pamela Smith, the chief of the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, is leaving the police department after 2 years in her role, Democrat Mayor Muriel Bowser announced Monday morning. Chief Smith drastically drove down violent crime, drove down the homicide rate to its lowest levels in 8 years, and helped us restore a sense of safety and accountability in our neighborhoods, Bowser said in a statement. The mayor, who on November 25th announced she would not run for re-election in 2026, gave no reason for Smith's departure from the police force. Smith's exit follows a turbulent past several months between the White House and the local government of the nation's capital. President Donald Trump has prominently criticized Washington's local leadership as of late, claiming on August 11th the city was entrenched in a tragic emergency of violent crime. In August, Trump began a 30-day crime emergency takeover of the city's police department, citing rampant crime, sending in the National Guard and appointing Drug Enforcement Agency Administrator Terry Cole to be emergency police commissioner with all the powers of the police chief. The city's police department was under direction to receive approval from Cole before issuing any order. However, on August 15th, the Trump administration agreed to allow Smith to continue to remain in control of the MPD. Smith said the increased presence of the National Guard in D.C. did not factor into her decision to step down from her role. The departing chief said she chose to step down to spend more time with her family following her trip to her native Arkansas for Thanksgiving, according to Fox 5. Smith also did not appear to provide any remarks to the press during a press conference immediately following the late November shooting of the National Guard agents by an Afghan national in Washington, D.C. Jeffrey Carroll, Smith's executive assistant chief of specialized operations for the MPD, gave remarks in Smith's place. Smith previously served 24 years for the U.S. Park Police, and spent 1 year as its chief. She's the first black woman to serve as a police chief in Washington, D.C. on a permanent basis. So there is that, guys, once again from dailycaller.com. Good to see this ineffective police chief finally calling it freaking quits. Alrighty, next one here comes from justthenews.com. There's another person calling it quits, and not really great news, actually. I'm not happy about this news at all. From Just the News, Alina Habba steps down as acting New Jersey U.S. Attorney. Alina Habba on Monday stepped down as the acting U.S. Attorney for New Jersey after multiple court decisions found she was occupying the post illegally. While I was focused on delivering real results, judges in my state took advantage of a flawed blue slip tradition and became weapons for the politicized left, she said. For months, these judges stopped conducting trials and entering sentences, leaving violent criminals on the streets. As a result of the Third Circuit's ruling and to protect the stability and integrity of the office, which I love, I've decided to step down in my role as the U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey, she added. Make no mistake, you can take the girl out of New Jersey, but you cannot take New Jersey out of the girl, she warned. Habba previously served as President Donald Trump's personal attorney. So there's that, guys, once again from justthenews.com. Unfortunately, the loony left and their judiciary friends have succeeded in forcing Alina Habba out of her position. Next one here from Zero Hedge. Dr. Oz threatens to pull funding from Minnesota after $1 billion in Medicaid funding was stolen by fraudsters. So the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services threatened to withhold federal funding from Minnesota after fraudsters allegedly stole more than $1 billion set aside for Medicaid programs. CMS Administrator Dr. Mehmet Oz ordered Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to follow a series of guidelines that crack down on the fraud and said that if the state does not comply, it will lose federal money. Either fix this in 60 days or start looking under your couch for spare change because we are done footing the bill for your incompetence, Oz announced on December 5th. CMS will require Minnesota officials to provide weekly updates for 6 months on the actions it is taking to stop fraud and to freeze enrollment of high-risk providers. The Minnesota Department of Human Services was also ordered to create a corrective action plan for outlining how it will prevent fraud going forward. Oz wants this plan submitted by the end of December. Our staff at CMS told me they've never seen anything like this in Medicaid, and everyone from Governor Tim Walz on down needs to be investigated because they've been asleep at the wheel, Oz wrote in a next post on December 5th. The Epoch Times reached out to Walz's team for comment, but did not hear back by publication time. The CMS administrator blamed bad actors in Minnesota's Somali community for being part of the fraudulent activity. There are nearly 80,000 Somalis living in the state, with the majority of them in the Minneapolis-St. Paul Twin Cities region, according to Minnesota Compass. Oz specifically alleged fraudsters targeted a housing program that was designed to help disabled homeless people, and a program that reimbursed therapy costs for families who have children with autism. The housing program was supposed to cost $2.6 million annually, Oz said. Last year, it paid out over $100 million. The autism program ballooned from $3 million in 2018 to nearly $400 million in 2023. These scammers used stolen taxpayer money to buy flashy cars, purchase overseas real estate, and offer kickbacks to parents who enrolled their kids at fake autism treatment centers. Some of it may have even made its way to the Somalian terrorist group Al-Shabaab. Representative Ilhan Omar was asked about allegations that the stolen funds could be linked to terrorism during an appearance on CBS News' Face the Nation on December 7th. Quote, if there was a linkage in that, the money that they had stolen going to terrorism, then that is a failure of the FBI and our court system and not figuring that out and basically charging them with these charges, Omar said. And so I did not know that for many years, this sort of like alarm that there is money being transferred through the airport in bags and going to terrorism that accusation has always existed. There's never been here and there in those accusations. But if that is the case, if money from U.S. tax dollars is being sent to help with terrorism in Somalia, we want to know, and we want these people prosecuted, and we want to make sure that doesn't ever happen again. Well, then maybe you should freaking resign, honestly. Immigration and Customs Enforcement announced plans to ramp up activities in the Twin Cities region after President Donald Trump rescinded temporary protected status for Somali immigrants living in the state. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey dismissed the Trump administration's immigration efforts and accused it of spending too much time, quote-unquote, terrorizing certain groups within our communities. So there is that, guys, once again, from ZeroHedge.com, and I will keep you guys updated on the massive fraud situation unfolding in Minnesota. It seems that every single day we have a new update regarding this, and it's getting quite spicy indeed. Next one here comes from thegatewaypundit.com. DHS drops bombshell. Pritzker's Sanctuary, Illinois released over 1,700 criminal illegal aliens, including murderers and child rapists, since January. So here we go. The Department of Homeland Security has put Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker on blast, revealing that his sanctuary state policies have allowed more than 1,700 convicted criminal illegal aliens, including murderers, kidnappers, and child predators, to be released back onto the streets since President Donald Trump took office in January. In a scathing letter sent Sunday to Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul, ICE Director Todd Lyons demanded the state finally start honoring federal detainers for over 4,000 additional criminal aliens currently in custody. Illinois has ignored every previous request since September. DHS said in a press release, Illinois' failure to honor ICE detainers has resulted in the release of 1,768 criminal illegal aliens since January 20th. The crimes of these aliens include 5 homicides, 141 assaults, 23 burglaries, 4 robberies, 24 dangerous drug offenses, 15 weapons offenses, and 10 sexual predatory offenses. There are currently 4,015 aliens in the custody of an Illinois jurisdiction with an active detainer. The crimes of these aliens include 51 homicides, 1,134 assaults, 107 burglaries, 36 robberies, 275 dangerous drugs offenses, 120 weapons offenses, and 813 sexual predatory offenses. The agency noted in September, ICE sent a letter to Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul asking for cooperation in honoring ICE detainers on criminal illegal aliens. His office did not respond. DHS also publicly named several of the worst offenders set free under Illinois policy, including individuals convicted of attempted murder, aggravated criminal sexual assault of a child, and kidnapping with ransom demands. Of course, they list the offenders. Don't really think it's all that important to know who the names are necessarily. But Governor Pritzker and his fellow Illinois sanctuary politicians are releasing murderers, pedophiles, and kidnappers back into our neighborhoods and putting American lives at risk, said Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin. We are calling on Governor Pritzker and his administration to stop this dangerous derangement and to commit to honoring ICE arrest detainers of the more than 4,000 criminal illegal aliens in Illinois custody. It is common sense. Criminal illegal aliens should not be released back onto our streets to terrorize more innocent Americans. Illinois officials have not yet responded to the latest DHS letter, but they will probably continue completely and totally ignoring the federal government, and they will probably continue allowing these people to roam free on the streets, of course, where they will unfortunately victimize even more people. So there is that. Once again, guys, from thegatewaypundit.com. J.B. Pritzker is absolutely god-awful. And frankly, at some point in time, I think that it might really necessitate the DOJ looking at charges for some of these so-called leaders around our country that continue with this nonsense. So there it is. Next one here from GatewayHispanic.com, although I do not really understand why it would be on Gateway Hispanic. But anyways, here we go. Alabama rejects plan to build large Muslim school and prayer center in 7-0 vote after packed hearing with nearly 200 furious residents. This is how you protect your community, folks. Shout out to Alabama. The Hoover Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously rejected last week the proposal to convert a 100,000 square foot office building in the Meadowbrook Corporate Park into an Islamic K-12 school and Muslim prayer center. The 7-0 vote followed a packed hearing with nearly 200 furious residents, sends the rejection to the city council for a final decision in January, prioritizing the preservation of local identity over expansions that threaten economic development and cultural cohesion. The proposal now goes to the City Council. The Islamic Academy of Alabama, which has 265 students in Homewood since 1995 and is linked to the Islamic Society of Birmingham, sought to relocate to serve its 40% Hoover-based students. However, residents like Jeff Wilson, who started a petition with more than 1,700 signatures, argue that it's not about religion but about unsustainable traffic on the already congested Highway 119. It took 18 minutes for 2 miles, Wilson complained, pointing out the 6 nearby schools serving 5,631 students that turned the road into a permanent parking lot, according to Meadowbrook neighbor Nancy Cooper. Fear of a demographic transformation similar to Dearborn, Michigan, where the majority Muslim population has altered local dynamics, dominated the public comments. Other neighbors were even more concerned about the Islamization of America. A Hoover woman who said she recently moved to the U.S. from the United Kingdom argued that Muslims do not assimilate well into other countries' cultures, fact check true, saying that the British went to great lengths to accommodate the demands of the Muslim community and that it ended up negatively affecting the community as a whole. Another man said that introducing an Islamic school and community center in the Hoover community would only attract more foreigners to the city and cause an influx of people who would create problems. One woman even held up a sign that read, "Stop the 100-year plan." The sign referred to an alleged Muslim Brotherhood plan to infiltrate Western countries and impose Sharia law, which we can literally watch happening right now over in Europe, by the way. The rejection contrasts with past approvals of Christian churches in similar zones, fueling debates about religious freedom under the Religious Land Use Act. This rejection not only defends traffic and growth, but the cultural sovereignty of conservative communities against progressive agendas that dilute traditional values. That's how it's done, Alabama. So there it is, guys. Once again, from GatewayHispanic.com. Some fantastic news there coming out of Alabama, and hopefully we'll see a whole lot more of this. You want to, start a Muslim school, then do so over in the Middle East, I guess, in an Islamic country. Not in a Christian country like the United States. Next one here from DailyWire.com. Trump administration found over 60,000 missing migrant kids ignored by Biden, Homan reveals. So again, just more about how unbelievably evil and disgusting the last so-called administration was. Let's take a look. The Trump administration has located 62,000 missing migrant children who crossed the border alone after the Biden administration lost track of roughly 320,000 of them, Border Czar Tom Homan revealed on Sunday. The Biden administration faced a record wave of migrant children crossing the border, bringing in roughly 500,000 of them. Federal authorities released many of them to poorly vetted sponsors, according to an Inspector General's report released last year. Several federal whistleblowers also came forward to raise the alarms about knowingly releasing children to sponsors, quote-unquote sponsors, they believed were trafficking the children. Some were reportedly known gang members and criminals. Now, the Trump administration is searching for the missing children and has made massive strides in this effort, Homan told Fox News. President Trump saved over 62,000 children's lives. Some of these children were in sex trafficking. We found them. Some were in forced labor. Some were being mistreated. I can't even discuss some of the mistreatment we have found out about. President Trump again proves why he's the greatest president in my lifetime. Over 62,000 children rescued by President Trump, children that were ignored and weren't being looked for under Biden, Homan said. The Democrats want to attack President Trump every day. They're attacking President Trump. They're complicit for 4 years this has happened. Sex trafficking, historic highs. Children crossing the border, historic highs. Migrant deaths crossing the border, historic highs. 250,000 Americans dead from fentanyl under Joe Biden because of that open border. Like or love President Trump, you got to admit this man has shown every day he's saving America, he added. 291,000 migrant children crossed the border without adults and were never given future court dates, last year's Inspector General's report found. Another 32,000 migrant children who were released into the United States with scheduled hearings never appeared for their court dates, according to the report, which tracked cases from October 2018 to September 2023. When children cross the border alone, Border Patrol hands them over to the Department of Health and Human Services, which helps connect them with a sponsor in the United States. But under the Biden administration, officials were instructed to work quickly to release children, which resulted in a compromised vetting system. So there is that, guys, once again from DailyWire.com. I can only imagine the horrors these children went through. I really hope that all 300,000 to 500,000 of them are found by the Trump administration. However, I think that it's an unfortunate reality that many of them will not be found because the cartels or the criminals, whoever the hell, was putting these children through this abuse, probably, already did what they were going to do, and now that child has probably forever disappeared. It's just completely and totally freaking horrifying to think about, but that's what was being allowed to happen under the previous so-called administration. Next one here from Daily Wire, Trump to provide billions in relief to farmers impacted by tariffs. Probably one of the biggest stories out there today. People were making a very big deal out of this. President Donald Trump is set to announce a $12 billion bailout for American farmers on Monday afternoon, a White House official confirmed to the Daily Wire. The move comes as many farmers have taken a blow due to the president's tariffs. Most of the $12 billion aid package will go toward one-time payments for farmers, especially soybean farmers, whose industry has taken a massive hit from Trump's steep tariffs on China, Bloomberg reported. Up to $11 billion will be provided to farmers under the Department of Agriculture's new Farmer Bridge Assistance Program. Trump will be joined by soybean, corn, cotton, sorghum, rice, cattle, wheat, and potato farmers to make the announcement in the Oval Office. Trump's financial aid will help a farming industry that relies heavily on exports to foreign nations. Around 25% of soybeans grown in the U.S. are exported to China, according to the Wall Street Journal. After Trump rolled out his tariffs on China earlier this year, the communist country completely cut off its imports of American soybeans until it reached a deal with the Trump administration in late October. Soybean, wheat, and corn farmers have already lost an estimated $13 billion due to the president's trade war, according to a Farm Group study. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett hinted at the administration's farm bailout in early October, calling the plan clever and generous. The farm aid rollout was delayed due to the record-long government shutdown that lasted from October 1st to November 12th. After the United States and China struck a deal to lower tariffs, China pledged to purchase 12 million tons of American soybeans by the end of the year. Since the end of October, China has purchased just over 2 million tons, according to Bloomberg. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said on Sunday that China is so far complying with its agreement. With China, it's always we verify and we monitor and we watch the commitments. The commitments are quite specific, Greer said during an appearance on the Sunday briefing on Fox News. So all these things that we've agreed to do with the Chinese recently are very concrete, and we can monitor them with some ease, and so far we're seeing that they're in compliance. Farmers have argued that they need government help to pay off debt and plan for next year's crops. They make up a large part of Trump's base and have continued to back the president. In the 2024 election, Trump's support among farming communities increased nationwide compared to 2020 and 2016. Trump won 78% of the vote from farming counties in 2024, 2 points better than he fared in 2020 and 5 points better than in 2016. During his first term, the president allocated $28 billion to farmers affected by his administration's tariffs on China. So there is that, guys. Once again, from DailyWire.com, President Trump announcing a $12 billion aid package for American farmers, mostly to offset the hardships that they've gone through because of the very necessary tariffs on China and some other countries. So, kind of a promises made, promises kept kind of a story today, which is always good to have. Next one here from Just the News. House releases $901 billion defense spending authorization bill, which is $9 billion over Trump's request. So the House late Sunday released the text of the National Defense Authorization Act, which codifies several of President Trump's executive orders. The 3,086-page bill, holy cow, was released on Sunday and is about $8 billion more than what Trump initially requested in the budget, Deseret News reported. The NDAA codifies at least 15 of Trump's executive orders, including those related to constructing the Golden Dome missile defense system, building physical barriers and deploying more troops to the southern border, and modernizing the development of weapons. The bill also includes revitalizing the defense industrial base and undoing woke policies enacted during the Biden administration. This legislation includes important House-passed provisions to ensure our military forces remain the most lethal in the world and can deter any adversary, House Speaker Mike Johnson said in a statement on Sunday. It roots out Biden-era wokeism in our military and restores merit-based promotions and admissions to service academies, prohibits contracts with partisan firms, counters anti-Semitism, and halts harmful, unnecessary programs like CRT, DEI, and climate initiatives. The NDAA would require the FBI to notify Congress if the agency opens an investigation into federal candidates, repeal the 1991 and 2002 authorizations for use of military force that authorized the U.S. to expel Saddam Hussein from Kuwait, and the 2003 invasion of Iraq, include a 4% raise for active military members, and reinstate merit-based promotions and admissions to service academies, and restrict U.S. investments into Chinese businesses or technologies. So there is that, guys. Once again, from justthenews.com. Sounds like a very, very large NDAA. $901 billion freaking dollars. Almost $1 trillion there. It's $8 billion more than what President Trump requested. We shall see what ends up happening with this in the Senate. But yeah, 3,086-page bill. Hopefully it's not stuffed with pork. If it's over 3,000 pages long, though, one could guess that it's probably got lots of pork in there. So hopefully the Republicans are combing through, trying to remove any poison pills that may be in there. Next one here comes from the Gateway Pundit. And this begins our news from abroad section of the day, which is a little bit longer than what it normally is. Like, we haven't even gotten to the halfway mark here, and we're already in the news from abroad. So here we go. Globalists panic over Trump's move to support patriotic forces in Europe. Unpopular EU quote-unquote leaders want to keep their mass migration, censorship, and warmongering. So I have been saying that I would really like the Trump administration to start throwing their weight around when it comes to our so-called friends over in Europe. And it looks like that's exactly what they're beginning to do. So to save Europe is an offense to EU globalists and the mainstream media. Well, of course, because they're the ones ruining all of Europe, right? The new national security strategy spells out clearly what many of us already knew for a decade. U.S. President Donald J. Trump will devote his titanic political and diplomatic capabilities to helping Europe get back to its cultural roots. To that end, his administration will help and promote patriotic forces which help them fight migration and censorship, and save Europe from civilizational suicide. So, of course, globalists in lockstep with mainstream media are in full-blown panic. Politico even reported the question is whether Europe's embattled centrists have the power or the will to stop him. Politico then writes, while bringing peace to Ukraine gets a mention, when it comes to Europe, America's official stance is now that its security depends on shifting the continent's politics decisively to the right. And yes, that's absolutely true. But that's not entirely correct, because we have leaders like Slovakia's Robert Fico, who was a leftist but not a globalist, and he's still fighting for Europe, including against the LGBT lobby. As you can read in Robert Fico's Slovakia approves constitutional amendment to recognize only two sexes, man and woman. And of course, they give a link to that story. So the NSS blames the EU for the risk of civilizational erasure, for mass migration, collapsing birth rates, and the progressive erosion of democratic freedoms. Should present trends continue, the continent will be unrecognizable in 20 years or less, it says. As such, it is far from obvious whether certain European countries will have economies and military strong enough to remain reliable allies. The policy prescription that follows is, in essence, regime change. Our goal should be to help Europe correct its current trajectory, the strategy document says. That will involve cultivating resistance within European nations. In case there is any doubt about the political nature of the message, the White House paper celebrates the growing influence of patriotic European parties as a cause for American optimism. Yes, indeed. So there it is, guys, once again, from thegatewaypundit.com. And yeah, I want President Trump to go full on with this. I want President Trump to call up Keir Starmer and be like, look, if you don't stop censoring your own people, if you don't stop putting people in jail for using the word faggot, so on and so forth, just as an example, if you don't stop bringing endless hordes of illegal aliens into your country at the expense of your own people, then we are literally going to fire you as an ally to our country. We don't want allies that do not share our values and do not treat their own people with respect like they deserve. So there is that, once again, guys, from thegatewaypundit.com. Next one here comes also from Zero Hedge. The days of censoring Americans online are over. Senior U.S. diplomats slam the EU's attack on American tech platform X. A very interesting story indeed. And let's go ahead and take a look. So U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and several other senior U.S. officials have criticized the internet policies of the European Union, likening them to censorship after the growing governing bloc last week levied Elon Musk's social media platform X with a $140 million fine for breaching its online content rules. On December 5th, EU tech regulators fined X 120 million euros, which is about $140 million, following a 2-year investigation under the Digital Services Act, concluding that the social platform had breached multiple transparency obligations, including the deceptive design of its blue checkmark, the lack of transparency of its advertising repository, and the failure to provide access to public data for researchers. The EU accused X of converting its verified badges into a paid feature without sufficient identity checks, arguing that this deceived users into believing the accounts were authentic and exposed them to fraud, manipulation, and impersonation. This meant the platform had failed to meet the Digital Services Act's accessibility and detail standards, leaving out key information that prevented efforts to track coordinated disinformation, illicit activities, and election interference, according to the EU. Even before the EU's fine was announced, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance suggested it amounted to punishing X for not engaging in censorship. On December 5th, Rubio wrote in a post on X that the fine was not just an attack on X, it's an attack on all American tech platforms and the American people by foreign governments. The days of censoring Americans online are over, Rubio wrote. On December 6th, U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau said the EU's policies are threatening the transatlantic partnership. The nations of Europe cannot look to the U.S. for their own security. At the same time, they affirmatively undermine the security of the U.S. itself through the unelected, undemocratic, and non-representative EU. This fine is just the tip of the iceberg, he wrote on X. In a follow-up post, Landau said his current trip to Brussels for NATO's ministerial meeting left him feeling that there is a glaring inconsistency between the United States' relations with NATO and the EU. When these countries wear their NATO hats, they insist that transatlantic cooperation is a cornerstone of our mutual security, he said. But when these countries wear their EU hats, they pursue all sorts of agendas that are often utterly adverse to U.S. interests and security, including censorship. This inconsistency cannot continue. U.S. Ambassador to the EU, Andrew Puzder, called the EU's fine on X regulatory overreach targeting American innovation. The EU also charged Meta and TikTok with breaching its Digital Services Act transparency guidelines in October, and then accused Temu, a Chinese online marketplace, of violating guidelines intended to prevent sales of illegal products. TikTok, however, was able to avoid the fines levied on X by making concessions to the EU. Meta's Facebook and Instagram were accused of failing to offer a user-friendly and easily accessible procedure for reporting illegal content, including child sexual abuse material and terrorist content, which the parent company denied. Then on December 4th, the European Commission said it had opened an antitrust investigation into Meta to determine whether the company's policy blocking third-party artificial intelligence tools on WhatsApp violates the EU's competition regulations. Helmut Brandstätter, a member of the European Parliament, shot back at Vance's post condemning the EU's decision to fine X. There is no censorship in Europe. Actually, yes, there freaking is, and everybody has to follow our rules, he wrote on X on December 5th. No, actually, nobody has to follow your rules if they aren't in your jurisdiction. Freaking loser. U.S. President Donald Trump fights the free press, suing newspapers and TV stations, so leave us alone, he said. In response, Under-Secretary of State Sarah B. Rogers posted a video to X in which she referenced the German woman who was recently given a harsher jail sentence than a convicted rapist after calling the latter a disgraceful rapist pig. The woman was convicted of insults and criminal threats under German law and sentenced to a weekend in jail, while the rapist received a suspended sentence without prison time because of his age. So which is it, Mr. Brandstätter? Is there no censorship in Europe, or do we all have to follow your rules? Rogers said. So there it is, guys, once again from ZeroHedge.com. Europe is on real freaking thin ice, guys, and it's starting to make me feel very excited for what's going to happen. I think President Trump is going to blow his freaking top at Europe any day now, and it's going to be absolutely glorious. So there is that, once again, guys, from ZeroHedge.com. With that being said, we are past that halfway mark, so we're going to go ahead and flip over to Pilled.net for the rest of the show. Just a bit more news to get into here, so looking forward to covering the rest of the stuff. We're going to play a quick video here for Pilled, and I do recommend you guys follow us over. There are 2 different links you guys can use to follow us over to Pilled. First one being a welcome link that'll help you get set up on Pilled and show you all the bells and whistles and whatnot. So I do recommend you guys use that. Second link is for you lurkers out there that would just want a really quick and easy way to get over to the channel with one single click. That second link is what you want to use. So we're going to play a quick little video here for Pilled, and then we'll be back on the other side of that. I'll see you guys in less than 60 seconds. Here we go.
Pilled.net is proud to host The Breakdown, exclusively on the true home of free speech. To continue watching the show, we are here to help you over to Pilled. If you're new to the platform, just click on the welcome link. It will automatically walk you through signing up for your free account. If you already have a Pilled account, follow the link provided to take you directly to the Season Pixel stream. We are excited to have you join the Pilled family. And if you have any questions at all, just email support@Pilled.net. Enjoy the rest of the breakdown with Season Pixels, exclusively on Pilled.net. Free speech lives here.
Indeed, free speech lives over at Pilled.net. Follow us over, guys. Plenty of news to get through here, and I'll see you guys over there on Pilled.